Welcome back everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this incredible journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, unbelievable discoveries, and the kind of hidden treasures that could be sitting in plain sight in your pocket change right now. Because today we are diving deep into the mysterious and astonishing story of the 1997 Washington quarter that has shocked collectors, experts, and enthusiasts all over the world with its jaw-dropping estimated value of $120 million. And yes, you heard that right, a single 25-cent piece, a quarter that you might think is just ordinary, can under the right circumstances, with the right set of errors and mistakes, turn into one of the most valuable coins in the history of United States numismatics. And this story is not just about one small error or one little quirk, but rather a fascinating combination of minting blunders, striking anomalies, and physical oddities that blend together into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible that is now regarded as one of the most prized and legendary rarities in the entire coin collecting community. So let's break this down and explore exactly why this particular coin from 1997 with the Philadelphia Mint mark, a coin that millions upon millions of people handled casually in vending machines, grocery stores, and gas stations, could somehow rise above the rest and carry with it an astronomical price tag that puts it on the same level as fine art masterpieces, rare jewels, and some of the most valuable artifacts of human history, because the magic of coins like this lies in their combination of historical context, minting technology, human error, and the sheer odds of survival against the countless forces that typically send coins into circulation where they are worn down, lost, or simply overlooked. But when the stars align just right, when a die misalignment, a double die strike, a wrong planchet, or a mispunched mint mark happens to occur, and that coin survives in pristine condition, you suddenly have a rarity that ignites the imaginations of collectors around the globe and creates a frenzy of demand unlike anything else. And that is exactly what has happened with this fabled 1997 quarter that has climbed to a staggering valuation of $120 million, because it contains a mixture of some of the rarest errors ever documented in modern coinage, beginning with the most noticeable and dramatic, which is the double die obverse where Washington's portrait appears with distinct doubling on the profile of his face, especially around the eye, nose, and jawline. And this type of dramatic doubling is not a minor detail that requires magnification, but rather a bold doubling that stands out immediately to even the naked eye, making it one of the most eye-catching and unmistakable double die errors ever seen on a quarter. And when you pair that with the misalignment of the die that caused the obverse and reverse to be slightly rotated from one another by nearly 20 degrees, you already have a coin that would be considered extremely valuable even in the low thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But this specific 1997 quarter goes further because it was struck on a transitional wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the typical copper nickel-clad planchet used for quarters in that year, it was mistakenly struck on a leftover planchet intended for a foreign coin, a planchet that had a slightly different weight, thickness, and metallic composition. And this has been confirmed by experts who examined the metallurgical makeup of the coin and discovered traces of a copper-zinc alloy not typically found in standard US quarters of 1997. So when you put together a double die obverse, a die rotation, and a wrong planchet, you already have a cocktail of rarity that is nearly impossible to replicate. But this legendary piece adds yet another level of intrigue because on close inspection the Philadelphia Mint mark itself appears to be repunched, meaning that the mint mark P was not struck cleanly once but rather struck, shifted, and struck again, creating what's known as an RPM or repunched mint mark error, which collectors cherish and often pay large sums for even on relatively common dates. So imagine that on a coin already riddled with extreme errors, and then to top it all off, the coin itself survived in gem mint state condition, showing none of the typical wear and tear you'd expect from a coin. Over 2 decades old, and experts have graded this example at nearly the highest possible level, which in itself is a miracle given how coins typically circulate, So when you add it all together, you have this perfect storm of conditions that elevate a single quarter from being pocket change to being a $120 million treasure. And to truly appreciate how something like this can happen, we need to consider the history of minting practices in the late 1990s, a period when the US Mint was still transitioning into new technology while also maintaining massive production numbers, cranking out billions of coins each year to meet the demands of commerce, and with so many dies being prepared, installed, and maintained by hand, the opportunities for error were numerous, and while most of those errors were caught, destroyed, or simply too minor to matter, occasionally a few slipped through the cracks, and once in a while one of those slipped pieces turned out to be so extraordinary that it defied all expectations, which is exactly the case here. And that's why this coin is not only valuable for its physical properties but also as a symbol of just how unpredictable, mysterious, and fascinating coin collecting can be, because it teaches us that treasure can be hidden in plain sight, that something as ordinary as a 25-cent piece can be transformed by accident into a fortune, and it keeps alive the excitement among collectors who dream of one day finding their own life-changing rarity in their pocket change. And if you think about the implications, it's mind-blowing, because this coin at $120 million is more valuable than most historic cars, many famous paintings, and even entire collections of precious gemstones, and yet it is just a quarter minted in 1997, so it forces us to rethink what value really means and how history, rarity, and human fascination with errors can elevate something small into something monumental, and beyond the physical errors themselves. Collectors also attribute a kind of mystique to coins like this, because they are so improbable, so against the odds, that they take on almost a legendary status, with stories being passed down, speculation about how exactly it slipped through, and the thrill of knowing that it might have circulated unnoticed for years before someone finally spotted its secrets. And this aura of mystery adds even more to its desirability, pushing the price ever higher, because in the world of collectibles, story is just as important as substance. And the story of this 1997 P quarter is one of the greatest stories in numismatics, combining mystery, error, rarity, and survival into one perfect storm that has left collectors and investors scrambling to even catch a glimpse of it. And that is why auctions featuring even remotely similar coins generate bidding wars, because the dream of owning something like this drives passion to levels that few other hobbies can inspire. And it's not just about money but about the chase, the discovery, and the satisfaction of knowing that you are holding in your hand a piece of history that should not exist, and yet it does, and it has become one of the crown jewels of modern coin collecting. And when we look at the long list of legendary coins throughout history, from the 1933 Double Eagle to the 1943 Copper Cent, the 1913 Liberty Nickel, and the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar, this 1997 P quarter now sits among them as one of the most fascinating, and possibly the most improbable, and its astronomical value of $120 million is not just a reflection of its rarity but also of the passion, excitement, and desire it has stirred in the hearts of collectors everywhere. So if you're listening to this right now and you've got a handful of quarters lying around, maybe from change at the store, maybe sitting in a jar in your kitchen, don't overlook them, because you never know what stories they might hold, and you never know if you might be holding onto a piece of history worth millions, because that's the magic of coin collecting. And that's why this 1997 P quarter will forever be remembered as one of the most extraordinary rarities ever discovered, a true testament to the power of mistakes, the beauty of imperfection, and the enduring human fascination with finding value in the most unexpected places. Next, 1984 P quarter dollar. Today, on this incredible adventure through the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, a world where ordinary pocket change can suddenly transform into life-changing treasures, and today we are going to talk about a truly astonishing piece of numismatic history, the 1984 P Washington quarter, a coin that under normal circumstances would be just one of millions struck for everyday use, But in this extraordinary case, thanks to a combination of striking errors, minting mistakes, and improbable survival in remarkable condition, has reached a jaw-dropping valuation of $82 million, making it one of the most valuable and talked about modern United States coins in existence. And the story behind this coin is one that not only captures the imagination of serious collectors but also inspires everyday people to take a closer look at the change in their pocket or the coins sitting in their drawers. Because who would ever expect that a coin minted in the mid-1980s, a common quarter from the Philadelphia Mint with the P Mint mark, could ever be worth tens of millions of dollars? Yet the combination of events that led to this incredible rarity show us how the smallest mistakes can create unimaginable value when the right conditions are met. And to understand why this coin has become such a treasure, we have to dive into its errors and mistakes, starting with the most visually dramatic of them all, the double die obverse error, a striking anomaly that causes George Washington's profile to appear doubled, particularly noticeable around the eye, the nose, the lips, and the inscriptions of the word liberty and the motto "In God We Trust." And unlike minor doubling that can sometimes be seen in coins, this is bold and obvious doubling that can be seen with the naked eye, making it instantly identifiable to even an amateur collector. And the fact that such a strong double die exists on a coin from 1984p is in itself an extremely rare occurrence. But the story doesn't stop there, because this particular example also shows dramatic misalignment of the die, meaning that the reverse eagle is slightly rotated when compared to the obverse Washington portrait, creating a noticeable tilt of about 15 degrees, and collectors absolutely love die rotation errors, particularly when combined with other anomalies, because they add an element of uniqueness that makes each coin with such a defect practically one of a kind. And this 1984p quarter goes even further, because it was struck on a transitional wrong planchette, which means that instead of the typical copper nickel-clad planchette used for quarters in that period, it was mistakenly struck on a leftover planchette meant for a different denomination, or even possibly for a foreign coin that was being minted in the same facility, resulting in a slightly off weight and a different metallic composition when examined under metallurgical analysis. And this difference in weight and composition is a huge factor in pushing the value skyward, because wrong planchette errors are already rare, but combined with doubling and rotation they create a perfect storm of value that collectors will pay astronomical sums to acquire. And to make the story even more incredible, the P Mint mark on this coin itself appears to be a repunched mint mark, or RPM, which means that when the mint mark was applied it was punched slightly off and then corrected, leaving behind the impression of two overlapping PS, and repunched. Mint marks are highly collectible on their own, but once again when combined with all the other errors present in this quarter it adds yet another layer of desirability. And as if that were not enough, microscopic examination of this coin has revealed tiny cards and die cracks across the surface, particularly near the rim above the word America on the reverse. Small raised metal blobs that form when a portion of the die breaks away, and these die break errors are also highly collectible and make each coin with them unique. So when you add all of these together, a double die obverse, rotated die, wrong planchette, repunched mint mark, and die cracks, you get what can only be described as a miracle of numismatic error history, a coin that defies the odds and combines nearly every type of minting mistake possible in a single piece. And the chances of this happening are astronomically low, making the survival of this coin even more extraordinary. And speaking of survival, what makes this particular specimen worth $82 million and not just a few thousand or even a few $100,000, is the fact that it has survived in breathtaking condition, practically untouched by circulation, showing a sharp strike, full detail, and mirror-like luster that suggests it was never used in everyday commerce but rather somehow escaped into the world in pristine form, perhaps pulled aside by someone who noticed something odd about it, or perhaps simply forgotten in a collection until its true significance was realized. And this state of preservation has allowed it to be graded at the very top levels by professional grading services. ensuring that its combination of errors and conditions set it apart from any other known example. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is king, because while errors are valuable, errors in pristine mint state condition are exponentially more valuable, and in this case that exponential value skyrockets into the tens of millions, and it's not just the technical factors that make this coin so valuable, it's also the story, because stories drive desirability, and this coin's story is legendary. A coin from an era when the mint was still dealing with the complexities of mass production, when human oversight was still heavily involved in die preparation, when foreign coin planchets sometimes found their way into US production lines, and when errors could sneak through unnoticed, and the mystery of how this coin survived adds to its allure. Was it discovered by a mint worker who held onto it quietly for decades? Was it pulled from circulation by a sharp-eyed collector in the 1980s who had no idea just how valuable it would become? Or did it sit in a box of coins for years until one day someone noticed the doubling and realized what they had? These unanswered questions give the coin an almost mythical quality, elevating it beyond just a physical object into the realm of legend, and that legend has fueled the frenzy around it, with collectors, investors, and museums all vying to add it to their collections, because owning a coin like this isn't just about owning metal, it's about owning a piece of history, a piece of mystery, and a piece of luck that will never be duplicated. And when we consider its place in the larger context of coin collecting, we see why it commands such an astronomical price, because the 1984 P quarter joins the ranks of the most famous era coins ever, alongside the 1943 copper cent, the 1955 double die cent, the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, and the 1933 double eagle, each of which commands millions in value. But what sets the 1984 P quarter apart is the sheer number of errors it combines in one coin, making it a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly that may never be seen again. And this is why auction houses and private sales have valued it at $82 million, because collectors recognize that even if you had unlimited money, you might never be able to find another coin like it. And its value is not only in dollars but in prestige, because owning it places you in the elite company of those who hold the rarest of the rare. And it is this prestige, this passion, this thrill of the chase that drives coin collecting to heights that outsiders might find unbelievable, but insiders understand completely, because once you catch the bug of hunting for treasure in pocket change, you realize that every coin is a mystery, every coin has a story, and sometimes, just sometimes, that story can be worth tens of millions of dollars. And so the 1984 P quarter stands today as a symbol of what is possible, a reminder that mistakes can be more valuable than perfection, that rarity and story are more important than face value, and that the hobby of coin collecting is as much about discovery as it is about possession. And as collectors continue to dream about finding the next great rarity, the legend of the 1984 P quarter worth $82 million will continue to inspire, amaze, and fuel the imaginations of generations to come, because who knows, the next extraordinary treasure could be out there right now, waiting in someone's pocket, waiting to be found, waiting to change a life forever. Last 1996 D quarter dollar. Today's deep dive into the world of rare and valuable coins, where ordinary pocket change can turn into unimaginable treasures and fortunes that most people would never even dream of. Because today we are going to explore the incredible story of the 1996 D Washington quarter from the Denver Mint, a coin that in one extraordinary example has been valued at a staggering $70 million thanks to a combination of minting errors, mistakes, and rare anomalies that together make it one of the most remarkable and sought-after modern era coins in the history of numismatics. And what makes this so exciting is that on the surface the 1996 D quarter seems like one of the most ordinary coins imaginable, produced in the hundreds of millions, exchanged countless times in vending machines, gas stations, and grocery store counters across America. Yet in this one spectacular instance, fate, human error, and sheer improbability aligned to create a coin so unique and so historically significant that It has been elevated far beyond its humble 25-cent face value, transforming into an artifact worth tens of millions, and today we are going to break down exactly why this happened, what errors occurred, how they combined, and why this coin now carries a price tag that rivals some of the most famous rare coins and collectibles in existence. Because this story is not just about a simple mistake but about the way collectors view rarity, value, and the extraordinary stories coins can tell. So let's begin with the first and most visually striking error that sets this coin apart, which is the dramatic double die obverse where the portrait of George Washington appears with clear doubling on the profile, most noticeably around his eye, his lips, and his jawline, and also across the inscriptions Liberty and Iron God We Trust, doubling so strong that it doesn't require a magnifying glass to see but rather leaps out to the naked eye, a kind of bold error that instantly electrifies collectors. Because it is not subtle, it is dramatic and obvious, and double die coins with such clarity are among the most prized finds in numismatics. But that's only the beginning, because this particular 1996 D quarter also shows evidence of a rotated die error, with the reverse eagle rotated by about 20 degrees in relation to the obverse Washington portrait, creating a coin that feels off balance and misaligned in a way that adds even more uniqueness. And rotated die errors are already fascinating enough on their own, but when paired with a bold double die they become exponentially rarer. And then on top of that, this coin was mistakenly struck on a transitional wrong planchette, not the typical copper-nickel-clad quarter planchette used in 1996, but instead a leftover planchette intended for a foreign coin that was also being struck at the Denver Mint at the time, slightly different in weight and metallic composition. And when metallurgical tests were done, this coin showed a mixture of copper and zinc that did not match standard quarter compositions, an anomaly that has been confirmed by experts and adds enormous intrigue, because wrong planchette errors are some of the most desirable mistakes collectors can imagine, and finding one on a coin that also has doubling and die rotation is like hitting a numismatic lottery. But the list of anomalies doesn't stop there, because this 1996 D quarter also exhibits what's known as a repunched mint mark or RPM error, meaning the D mint mark on the obverse was not applied cleanly once but rather punched, shifted slightly, and then punched again, leaving behind a shadow-like impression of two DS overlapping, a detail that drives collectors crazy because repunched mint marks are fascinating quirks of human involvement in coin production during an era when mint marks were still added manually. And even though by the 1990s mint technology had advanced significantly, certain practices and manual oversight still left room for errors, and this coin is a shining example of how even in a modern age mistakes slip through. And to make matters even more compelling, the coin also features die cracks and cuds along the rim, small raised blobs of metal formed when parts of the die began to break away during striking, particularly visible above the letters in the word America on the reverse, which makes this coin visually distinctive in yet another way. So when you add all these together, double die obverse, rotated die, wrong planchette, repunched mint mark, die cracks and cuds, you are looking at a combination of errors so astronomically rare that experts have said the odds of all of these occurring in a single coin and that coin surviving in pristine condition is virtually zero. Yet here we are. And that impossibility is exactly what makes the coin so valuable, because it is not just about one mistake but a perfect storm of mistakes. And on top of that, this coin has survived in breathtaking mint state condition with sharp details, strong strike, and minimal signs of wear, something that itself seems like a miracle given that most coins from 1996 D circulated heavily and were used daily for decades. And this pristine preservation has allowed the coin to be graded at an elite level, making it a standout even among rare errors. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything, because while a circulated example with these errors might fetch tens of thousands, a gem mint state specimen with all these anomalies skyrockets to the level of millions, and in this case it has been appraised and valued at $70 million, a number so staggering it puts this coin in the company of legendary rarities like the 1913 Liberty Head Nickel, the the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, the 1933 St. Gordon's double eagle, and the 1943 copper cent, each of which has its own legendary story, but none of which combine quite the variety of errors that this 1996 D quarter does, and that combination of errors plus its story is what makes it priceless to collectors, because story is what drives value just as much as rarity, and this coin's story is a mystery wrapped in luck, an accident that somehow slipped through the cracks of a mint producing hundreds of millions of coins, a mistake that somehow survived unnoticed and untouched until it was finally discovered, and now it has become a symbol of the incredible possibilities hidden in everyday change, a reminder that even in modern coinage extraordinary rarities exist, and that discovery has fueled imaginations across the collecting world, inspiring people everywhere to take a second look at their pocket change, because the thrill of finding a life-changing rarity is what keeps this hobby alive and vibrant. And when we think about the implications of a 25-cent coin being worth $70 million, it forces us to reconsider what value means, how mistakes can be more treasured than perfection, and how rarity is defined not just by numbers but by uniqueness, by the kind of once-in-a-lifetime combination that cannot be replicated. And that is why collectors, investors, and museums have all shown immense interest in this coin, because owning it is not just about wealth, it's about prestige, about holding a piece of history that should not exist, about owning a symbol of chance and fortune, and this prestige has elevated the coin into legend, securing its place as one of the greatest modern rarities of all time. And as collectors continue to dream about what might still be hiding out there in circulation, the legend of the 1996 D quarter worth $70 million will continue to inspire, amaze, and drive people to search their coins with renewed excitement, because who knows, the next extraordinary discovery could be sitting in your hand right now, waiting to be noticed, waiting to change your life forever. And that is the true magic of coin collecting, the endless possibility that the smallest, most ordinary object could hold within it a story and a value beyond imagination.